Hi guys, my name is Joe and welcome to my channel, Fighting Words, the Martial Arts Library. And this is a segment that I call Media Fight Mondays. Now, Media Fight Mondays happen on the first and third Monday of every month. And in Media Fight Mondays, I take a look at a fight scene from a TV show, movie, animation, and I break down the action and grade it based on realism and also storytelling. So this is a scene from the Highlander TV series. This is a season 2 episode called The Zone. And in this particular sequence, we have Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, the guy in the ponytail, played by Adrian Paul. And he is going to be taking on Charlie DeSalvo, played by Phillip Akin. And Charlie is the guy who manages this dojo. MacLeod is the guy who owns it. They're having a little friendly spar, and I've turned off the sound, so maybe I won't get a copyright hit for this one. But the theme is Charlie has decided that he's going to be the one to teach the lesson today. And the lesson is going to be on the history of martial arts. And they're going to start with wrestling. And I'm going to put that in quotation marks. So, yeah, they're behaving like people who think that they've heard of what wrestling is. Then MacLeod moves into a full Nelson and gets that trip. Now, the thing is, that particular takedown, Adrian Paul, the gentleman who plays Duncan MacLeod, has a background in Chinese martial arts. That actually looks a lot like something from Shui Jiao to me. Shui Jiao being Chinese wrestling. It's not typically something that you would find in amateur wrestling. The full Nelson isn't something you'd find in amateur wrestling. And actually I have a video explaining what old school wrestlers thought about the full Nelson. Go ahead and check that out. So the second round is going to be Kung Fu. And of course he's giving a bit of a background, brought to China by Indian monks. Gets a nice little trip there after a couple of parries. This next section up is boxing. We're going to see how that goes. Now the thing is, MacLeod has shown some old school pugilism in some of his episodes. Slips the jab. Ooh, gets caught with the hook. That's a nice right hook. And they're going to finish with karate. Or so they say. That's an interesting posture. So we see a spinning kick. And now he's given him the Three Stooges treatment. That was a nice little interlude. I had to cut out the dialogue. The dialogue was nice, though. If you are a fan of, the history of martial arts, it was kind of a nice little wink and a nod to that. I didn't have the dialogue on. Some of it was, let's say, less than historically accurate, but is also commonly accepted. And, of course, we ended up, again, with the Three Stooges reference, which was nice. So as far as technique goes, the wrestling, as I mentioned, questionable. It looked like what people think that people who don't know what wrestling looks like thinks that wrestling looks like. The kung fu bit, MacLeod was in that that cat stance kind of position. That was believable. Again, the actor has an actual background in Choi Lai Fat and Hung Gar Gong Fu. So I can see him taking that from that. The boxing, here's where I was going to mention, these guys are hitting each other bare knuckle and nobody's getting a bloody lip or anything like that. I don't think that's how it would go in most gym environments. It's certainly not realistic to expect to get popped in the face bare knuckle and not, again, get a bloody lip or a bruise or something. Which, MacLeod being an immortal who heals near instantaneously, that would raise some suspicion. So, story-wise, that wasn't a good choice on his part. But yeah, the sequence with, they were both in orthodox boxing positions. Mr. Akin throws a series of 3 jabs, MacLeod slipping them, and then he gets popped with the rear hook. I think that's actually pretty realistic. If you got a guy who's only playing defense, you're going to use your jabs to sort of figure out, sort of probe his defenses, see how he's going to react. Then, oh, he's just moving his head. I guess he's just going to move his head into my punch. That's a pretty realistic setup. We didn't see all of the karate sequence. It cut away to show, one of the other characters making an appearance. But, the stances they were showing, or that MacLeod was getting into, I don't typically buy that as a karate stance from the 20th century. Given the fact that he's over 400 years old, maybe he experienced an earlier form of karate, and they did have that arm over the head position. Although I think I've seen, what was it, Karate Culture? I think they've shown similar positions like that. I'm not a big fan. There's not a whole lot that you can do from that position. So, grading that all together, again, the Kung Fu sequence was pretty realistic. The boxing sequence was realistic. The wrestling sequence, Phil Nelson was definitely a part of old school wrestling. That particular trip that he used could realistically be part of Western wrestling. Although, again, I think you're going to find that more in, East Asian wrestling styles. The karate part, we didn't see a whole lot of it. In the part I saw, it didn't seem distinctly karate to me, necessarily. I guess overall for technique, A-. The choreography was solid. The guys were pulling off their moves pretty well. So yeah, I'll buy that. As far as storytelling goes, we get MacLeod sort of dominating the action, except for the boxing part. I do wonder if that's meant to imply that perhaps he has a weakness to boxing. There are some other episodes where people tend to get the better of actual boxing exchanges, or he's getting bested while he's trying to box or do pugilism. And I do wonder about that a little bit. But, he's a good fighter, but boxing isn't necessarily his forte. I don't think that was an intentional decision. At the very least, it sort of shows that maybe Charlie is a better boxer, or perhaps that MacLeod was getting a little too cocky, not engaging in a boxing exchange, but just like, ha ha, I can slip your punches, then he gets popped. But storytelling wise, I actually think the little Three Stooges bit at the end to show, like, okay, we're having fun. This isn't really an ego versus ego thing. So I think it did an okay job of. I think the story it told was pretty solid for what it was. So it didn't tell us a lot, and it doesn't come out necessarily in the rest of this episode. But as a self-contained sequence, I'm going to go ahead and say, go ahead and give that an A. So again, this is a bit of a short sequence, but I enjoyed it. Now, the stunt coordinator for this episode was a gentleman by the name of John Wardlow. I don't know how much he had a hand in choreographing this sequence. There's nobody who's credited as a fight choreographer. Again, Adrian Paul had a pretty strong background in Kung Fu by this time, so I don't know. I don't know who all was involved in this, but I'm going to credit Mr. Wardlow, and he did a total of, as a stunt coordinator, did a total of 37 episodes for Highlander. In addition, he did stunts for things like iRobot and X-Men: The Last Stand. You know, he's been involved in movies for a while. So, you know, that's a little bit of background on that. So, yeah, altogether, A- for the action, because I couldn't really see the karate stuff, and the wrestling was mildly derpy. But I did like the boxing and the kung fu sequences. Storytelling, again, a solid A as far as like the self-contained story that was told here. You know, these gentlemen are both well schooled in various fighting systems. They are both very capable fighters. And at the end of the day, this wasn't about, ha ha ha, look at me beating up you. No, they were having fun. This was a friendly spar at the end of the day. So I think that told a good story. So that's all I have for this week. Check back for the next Media Fight Mondays on our schedule, the first and third Monday of every month. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later.